everyone, it's Cathy Zielske. Welcome back to my channel and the craft/dining room. Today's card project is all about gratitude, and I have a really fun, big old thankful die, fun fall leaves, and I'm going to create a really simple but lovely thankful card. At least that's the plan. But I think you will love this design, so stick around. That card project is coming up next. So here's a look at the first card I'll be creating today, which is all shiny and leafy goodness. And here is a simpler card for my second option. I think both cards are really charming and sweet, so let's take a look at the products I'm using. Starting out here with this lovely lined leaves set. All these funky leaves and sweet greetings. There are also coordinating dies available to cut out all the leaves. I also have my thankful, well, it's called chunky thankful, but look at how big that is. It cuts out an outline, the insides, and a shadow layer. I've also got some clear embossing ink and some powder, and then just a host of scraps. I just pulled these right off my scrap shelf, and I'm going to be using these to create my cards today. The first thing I'm going to do is start out by stamping a bunch of leaves. I really didn't know where I was going with this, but I figured, you know, if you have a bunch of leaves, how far wrong can you go? I think leaves are really universal too, if you think about it. You can use them for pretty much anything. So here we go, powdering up with some embossing magic. I'm going to ink these up really well with my clear embossing ink. Go ahead and stamp these down. I've got my Debbie tool here so I can press. Saves my wrists a little bit of pain. I love this thing. And that looked pretty good, but I thought, you know what, let's make sure it's perfect. Well, not perfect, but yeah, that's what the Misty's for. You can stamp and stamp again in the same place. Look at that. It's magic. Well, it's not magic, it's a Misty. That'd be a great catchphrase. I'm going to sprinkle my powder here onto the stamped images while that ink is still sticky. And let that sit there just for a second and tap it off. Now, I noticed that powder was sticking everywhere and there was so much static in the craft/dining room. Some days I think climate does make a difference because I powdered the heck out of that with my embossing magic and it was still kind of sticking, so I knew after you funnel, and look at that, it's even sticking to my little piece of paper. So it was time to bust out the brush, you know, a little angled brush. And this is just an extra step. You certainly don't have to do it, but I really do love the look of a clean emboss, right? You can even take a craft pick for some of the inside pieces that are sticking that you can't get with a brush. I learned that from my friend Laura Basson. It's a great tip. The craft pick, so all-purpose, right? You can do so many things with it. So I got that in a goodly fashion and then melted the powder. I really do love the leaves, just this, you know, with white on cardstock. Of course, if you're really artsy, you could paint and do magical things that way, but I'm not always, you know, I'm not always up for the going all in with the painting, but this is my jam. I'll cut out all of the leaves here with my die cut machine. Now I've got my Gemini Junior here and I've started doing it a little differently after watching a video from my friend Jennifer McGuire. I have started flipping my plates and having the blade point up, if that makes sense, into the plate. But also, I love my Totally Tiffany rotating design board because then I never have to lift up that heavy machine. So there you go. Two things great about die cutting. And it gives great cuts too. Well, let's do this now. Pop out my leaves. And we have the start. Aren't those cute? Just so simple. So cute and simple. Now, I've got all this cardstock, and I'm going to stamp and die cut, mix and match some of the other leaf stamps until I have this array. I decided not to use the deeper pink. I liked the lighter pink with this. I think throwing in sort of a dusty pink is such a cool way to upgrade your fall palette. And I've got some Lawn Fawn gold cardstock here that I'm going to cut Thankful out of. And at first I thought I was going to use the fills, right, the shiny fills, but then when I popped that out, I thought that's what I want to use for my card. It's just elegant enough, right? So I cut out a shadow layer from vellum, and then I cut Thankful out in white as well because I'm going to build up some dimension onto the vellum shadow layer. So I'm going to spray that off camera onto the back of the white Thankful outline, right? Line that up. It's very easy to do with these generous shadows, right? Just make sure all of the letters are fitting right into those spaces like they're designed to do. And then give it a little press for good measure to really let that adhere. And then I'm filling in all of the open letter areas just with some liquid glue. This is Connect Glue from Gina K Designs. And once I get that in, I'm going to use my Crystal Katana, and sometimes when it loses its stick, I just rub it against my adhesive eraser and it kind of works like magic. But I'm going to fill in with white. I didn't want to do gold on the inside, right? We've already determined that. So I thought that white letter fills, K, I'm getting ahead of myself. I thought that the white letter fills would be really nice. So I'm doing the first layer because I think it's going to make it easier when I go to build up the rest of the dimension. Popping in that little center of the A, just kind of squishing it down, and again, press, really adhere it in there. I've got a second layer of dimension with the outline, and again, I just cut out one more piece of white cardstock. This is Neenah Solar White Classic Crest in the 110 pound. Getting that lined up, and I think when you do it on the shadow layer base, sometimes it's easier, okay? Sometimes, not always, but with the bigger die cuts, and then adhesive added to the back of the gold layer, and we pop that down. And I just think this is cool. It's like a little gilded edge, you know what I mean? I just thought this was so fun, a way to add a little gold shine without being in your face. Because you know me, I don't want to be in your face. I mean, usually I don't. All right, popping down the center of the A, getting that kind of wiggled into place, right? The liquid glue, good for this, but it's a slippery sucker. And then press. Well, it kind of stuck, but you know what I'm doing. Pressing it down, and look at that. Isn't that fun? I love it. So elegant. So many things you could do with that as your start, right? So let's make our card base. This will be a USA 2 landscape orientation. So when it folds down, it's going to be 5.5 by 4.25 tall. Give that a good press. Next, I'll take some foam squares, and these are just the regular foam squares, not the thin ones. And I'll place them in strategic areas to hide behind the white letters. I'll just cut a few down to fit into the smaller pieces. And now we'll have a fun way of adding that dimension and having the vellum shadow layer appear like it's floating. It's like magic. Love the way it casts a shadow too. I think that's so pretty. So here's my leaf arrangement. It took me about 15 minutes off camera to figure this out. Leaf arranging, not my strong suit, but I liked the idea of having 5, right? I like odd numbers in design. And I'm just going to adhere the leaves directly to the card base, right? I'm not going to pop them up because I think the Thankful is already popped up enough. You know, you don't need to compete. The whole idea with these leaves is that they just create a pretty fallish frame for the greeting. And I thought that looked good. So I'm just adhering this with dot runner, right? No big whoop. You can also use liquid adhesive if you are more comfortable with that. But I like to be able to wiggle and move things around, and sometimes dot runner is great for that as well. But again, it's a little fussy. Takes a while. I started to panic. I thought, what if this doesn't look good? You know, because it happens. But I really do think this is looking, well, it's looking pretty good. I wasn't really going here at first, but let's just say I'm glad that I arrived. All right, so taking the backers off of the foam squares, popping on some liquid adhesive so I have a little bit of wiggle room, right? So it'll hydroplane a little before we land, and get that positioned right onto the center of the card base and press. Make sure it's lined up. I love my clear T-square ruler just for that reason, making sure those baselines of the letters are where they need to be, and we'll let that set up. Next, Got to add some shine to this one because I think there's just enough shine, right? You've got your cardstock, you've got your gold outlines, so I just grabbed some gold confetti. I love confetti. I almost think I like it more than a classic sequin just because, well, it's easy to glue and pick up. Maybe that's part of it. It's just so simple, right? Because it doesn't have the little hole where the glue's going to ooze through. But I'm just creating my cluster of 3. I like repeating things in odd numbers, and then I like having odd numbers in the groups that I'm repeating. So let's go. Boop, boop, boop. I have this sped up, boop, because I felt, boop, the video, boop, was going too long. Boop, hard to say sometimes, boop, and then you, boop, see, there you go. You got the boops in, we're good to go. Isn't that fun? I think this is such a beautiful card, and it's simple, right? Clean and simple, but there were a lot of steps that went into that. So let's take some leftovers for card 2. I used my lined mat to make sure the tops and the bottoms of the leaves were perfectly lined up and also spaced apart. I'm going to pick them up with just a little piece of Post-it tape. So that way they stay nice and lined up, and I can add foam squares to the back, which is going to make it easy to pop this up onto a card project. Okay, getting those on. For this one, I am using thin foam squares. So these are the thin foam squares, and I buy multi-packs that have the 2 sizes. Now I've got this little piece of paper. This is Desert Storm, and I think it's, what is that, 4 3/4 by 3.5. I'm going to add this as a panel, and I'm scoring at 1/4 inch all the way down this panel just for some subtle dimension. I love the Score Buddy for something like this. I actually learned this from watching many, many videos by my friend Gina K of Gina K Designs. You can have a lot of fun with a Score Buddy, right? It's a versatile tool. You can do more than just, score your card bases. And this is the one thing that I think is really fun. Create a striped textured pattern for your panel. Isn't that cool? One side is debossed, and then one side looks, well, embossed, I guess. I've got foam tape on the back of this panel, and I wanted the bumpy side up just for some subtle texture. Taking the backers off of the foam squares, and then I'll go ahead and add my liquid glue again, just for that little bit of wiggle room, because foam squares just stick. They stick like a mother, and where they go, they stay. But if you add a little liquid glue, just have a little bit of hydroplane time, right? A little slide time. So I'm going to line those up with the lines. Maybe that was my real reason. I wanted something to help me line it up. Just make sure that the bottoms are lined up. Sometimes with simple cards, just going the little extra mile. It can help the end result. And look at that. You peel back the tape, and they're perfectly lined up. I decided to stamp a little greeting here on some black cardstock, and I cut that out with one of my sentiment label dies that also has a little banner notch die, and I'm just going to pop that, I guess, right there. Right there. I thought a little black sentiment like that really popped on this card, and again, wiggle it into place, and that's my card 2. So very different look, right? Definitely more earthy, but I really like how it turned out. So there's a look at my 2 cards, and then, when you cut a bunch of leaves, you got a bunch of leaves to play with. So I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I know what I did with these. Thanks so much for watching, and you can find all of the links below in the information box. I will see you back here with another card project soon. Thanks so much for watching today. I would love to have you become a subscriber to my YouTube channel. And if you do subscribe, be sure to hit the gray bell below the video so that you don't miss the next time I post. Here are a couple other videos that you might be interested in watching. Thanks so much and have a great day.